This is anything but a man in a fursuit. There wasn't spandex, there wasn't Velcro, there wasn't anything but relatively cheap costume fur available, especially to an amateur who might be trying to pull off a hoax.
Here are the facts. People in China call it the Yiren, in Siberia it's the Chuchuna, and in Australia locals call it the Yahweh. If you're American, you know it as Bigfoot. You may think it's nonsense or you may be convinced it's out there, but either way you've probably heard of the hunt for the mysterious Sasquatch. People around the world believe Bigfoot exists. Reports of its appearance have key similarities. First, it's covered with hair. Second, it's elusive. Third, it walks on 2 feet like a human being. From Indonesia to East Africa and from Canada to the Amazon, reports of these creatures date back into antiquity. Native American tribes have legends of the Sasquatch. Folklore experts like Joseph Campbell see this wild man of the woods legend as a symbolic archetype. Some anthropologists think it may be based on a memory of Gigantopithecus, a 10-foot-tall primate that may have interacted with early man. To some cryptobiologists, the Sasquatch may be an undiscovered primate. Bigfoot is one of the world's most popular cryptids. Cryptids are animals whose existence has yet to be proven to mainstream science, and these are the holy grail of biology. These days, proving the existence of a cryptid is tough, but not impossible. Consider the coelacanth, a particularly ugly fish that was thought to have died out millions of years ago. At least that is, until it was rediscovered by Hendrik Goosen in 1938. South African locals had known of the fish's existence for years. Science has accepted the existence of other former cryptids, such as the giant anaconda and the Komodo dragon. Yet in spite of abundant theories, there's one problem with the Sasquatch story. Proof. We have blurry photos, film reels, and alleged footprints, but no body. Why not? The idea that a large primate could escape detection for this long is hard to swallow. But according to some frustrated hunters, it isn't tough to locate Bigfoot. The creature is real, but Uncle Sam doesn't want you to find it. Here's where it gets crazy. Some hunters think governments actively suppress Bigfoot evidence. What if Bigfoot is the missing link between animals and humans? It could contradict biblical claims. For this reason, other researchers think a religious organization rather than the government is sabotaging the quest. That's difficult to believe, but even crazier theories abound. Some believe that Bigfoot is an extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional creature. This supposedly explains why the Sasquatch appears around the globe without being caught. Other theories don't require aliens. What if environmentalists are perpetrating the hoaxes to deter logging companies? What if it's an escaped exotic animal? After all, gorillas live for decades and most people haven't seen one in the wild. In a 2007 episode of Discovery's Monster Quest, the team staked out a remote cabin in Ottawa where Sasquatch attacks have been reported. Something threw rocks and left evidence of its passing. Unfortunately, the crew could not test for DNA. The hair the creature left behind resembled human hair but lacked features present in human strands. These hair samples didn't match any North American animal. So what is the Sasquatch? An ancient primate, a living fossil like the coelacanth, a band of pranksters? Or could it actually be a missing link, bridging the gap between the mainstream and the stuff they don't want you to know?
First of all, it was a bright sunny day, as you can see. And you could see her muscles rippling in her shoulder, in her thigh, as she walks. Jerry Romney, the guy they said was in the suit, they stuck him with breasts. What would they do that for? Why go to the trouble? She left tracks in the hard-packed sand of the creek bed. 1 inch deep. We have pictures, we have casts, no question, inch deep. So we know that as she stood there doing this, she weighed 600 to 800 pounds. Fake that. Solid proof that that's not a human being in a suit.
And he's been a thinker for a lot longer than that. Ladies and gentlemen, Lloyd Pye.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that very much. Okay, now let's start with that as background. Let's start talking about this guy right here. Let's start talking about humans and how humans came to be here. Next slide. Okay, this sums it up about as well as it can be done. the Darwinian paradigm. Everything else is eat, survive, reproduce, eat, survive, reproduce, and only us have the ability to stand there and say, what's it all about? How could we be so incredibly different from everything else? How could that happen? Well, let's start with this guy right here and take off the tail. The cartoonist probably feels like you do that monkeys preceded apes. You feel that way, do you not? The reality of it is that's not true. Apes, it isn't that there was no monkey-like creatures, but apes dominated in the era called the Miocene, which is around, just call it 20 million years ago. It's much longer than that, but just think 20 million years to simplify it. Around 20 million years ago, you have a period, take the tail off, of 24 ape species with maybe as many as 50 different types. Apes all over the place, and all sizes, ranging from the literally giant Gigantopithecus whose head would brush that right there, down to man size, plenty man size, down to small ones like gibbons and orangutans of today. We're talking tailless creatures, apes. Monkeys, very seldom found, not many monkeys out there. Apes dominate through the Miocene. And interestingly enough, a lot of Miocene apes, just as you see this guy right here, they have arms that are basically as long as their legs, and they have grasping hands. Now, he did that just inadvertently, but it turns out to be just about right. Now, what does that mean? It means those Miocene apes are not quadrupeds. They're not incipient quadrupeds. To be a quadruped, your arms have to be longer than your legs for you to move comfortably. All quadrupeds have that, longer arms than legs. So if you've got arms that are about the same size as your legs, you're not making it on all fours very well. You need to be up on 2 feet to be able to move comfortably. But you will not get any anthropologists that will acknowledge that. They insist that all of the ones with the longer arms were not only not bipeds, but none of them survived. All of them went extinct. The only survivors just happen to be the 4 quadrupeds that we accept today, gorillas, chimps, gibbons, and orangutans. That there was no possibility of upright walking all the way back into the Miocene, even though the evidence is pretty clear that it had everything it needed to be happening. Why is that? Because walking is considered to be a human exercise. And so walking is what we claim is our very own, what makes us special in the distant past, and walking has to be learned by somebody with the growing intelligence to do it. So you can't really tell the truth about the Miocene if you want to preserve that image. We know that there was a walking, upright, bipedal creature at 3.5 million years ago, because here's the tracks. At Laetoli, Tanzania, Mary Leakey's team found him in '78. Just a miracle. There was an ash fall 3.5 million years ago. 2 creatures went walking by, a large one and a small one. We assume it was a male and a female. And ash covered over it. Then it was found in 1978. Again, just a miracle. And here you go. And we've got good, clear images of the footprint of the creature walking 3.5 million years ago. So we assume that that creature that you saw must have started prior to that in order to be walking this efficiently upright at 3.5 million years ago. So the theory became, well, humans and apes must have split from a common ancestor sometime between 5 and 8 million years ago. 5 and 8 million years ago for us to be walking upright well at 3.5. We had to be walking decently upright at 4 million years ago. So it's just pretty much randomly pulling it out of the hat. Now we have creatures that may be upright as far back as 6 million years ago, but there's debate and it's not proved yet. But at least 3.5 for sure, here we are. But it's not really a human track. All right, now, next slide, please. Here's the depiction of how this happened. The nearby volcano laid out a layer of ash. The creatures go walking along, leaving their tracks. Then another layer of ash comes, seals the layer, and then 3.5 million years later, a rivulet comes through here, cuts through, exposes one of the tracks. One of Mary Leakey's team sees it, and then they peel back the layers until they expose the whole thing. Miracle piled on miracle. It's just amazing, an amazing discovery. Now, the reason I show you this is I want you to notice that all pre-humans that you will see in the books, and go back and you can check, they will show you a head that looks like this one pretty much, grossly primate in its characteristics rather, because that's what the skulls of all pre-humans look like. But then they'll always stick these human bodies underneath those heads. And this is a subtle brainwashing that is performed on all of us to make us think that these are in fact pre-humans, because that's what they're called. That's what anthropologists call them, pre-humans. Now you can't pretend that those heads are in any way human, so they don't, but they leave the body parts looking, you know, amazingly human. You have the hands coming down mid-thigh, and you know, I hate to say it, but God, this looks a lot like my body right there. Point is, we're all being misled by these depictions, and notice them continually. It's the way I'm telling you. Now, next slide, please. And that's understandable, because you're looking at 3.5 million years of, quote, evolution between these two. So you have quite a different look. This is a photogrammetric analysis, meaning it studies the pressure points in the footprints at Laetoli and in a human footprint. Now, look at how we walk. We have a good hard slam on the heel, what's called a heel strike. We have our momentum shift over here. This is our ankle point, which is to the rear of our foot, back near our heel. And we swing our momentum around our arch, assuming we have normal feet, and then it goes over to here, it gathers in the ball under our big toe, and we thrust off of our big toe, and we use our other toes for balancers, and then we thrust off. Now this one, on the other hand, does it completely different. It's got an ankle that's centered up, middle of the foot. It's got a heel strike and a forefoot strike that are dead equal. It comes down flat on its feet, very smooth. And instead of toeing off the way we do, it toes off with the ball area of its foot. And in every way, this is actually a better stride. This is a better walk. Because what's happening with us is we're going from our heel strike, we're swinging our momentum around our arch and cutting it over like this. That's creating torque in our joints that we don't need. And that torque in our joints wears us out over time. And when we get old, our joints wear out and we get arthritis, and you know all the things humans are subject to. So you're looking at a better, more efficient way to walk at 3.5 million years ago than us. That's pretty strange, isn't it? Now, what could be walking better than us at 3.5 million years ago? Next slide. Lucy is very famous. Everybody should know her story. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, 1974, Afar Valley, Ethiopia, discovered by Donald Johanson and his team. She is the first of the so-called pre-humans. They are the Australopithecines, and she is one of the first types. Now, what we know from her is a remarkable amount, because we have 40% of her body recovered. With mirror imaging, that gives us 80%. So much more than any other fossil at the time. It was just amazing. So we know a lot about her. She stood about 3 feet 6 inches to 3 feet 8 inches tall. Very diminutive relative to us. But her bones, all of her bones, are much more robust than ours. Her upper arm bone here, for example, which is much longer than ours would be if it was a human that size. This arm bone it would end about right here. Also, it would be about that thick. So we can see she's much more robust than we are in all of her dimensions. She has the head of a chimpanzee, which we cannot tell from her skull, as you can see, but from others like her. Head of a chimpanzee. But we do know that she walks upright because we have her hip joint and her pelvis, and we have particularly her knee joint, all of which are amazingly human. So we know she walked upright, no question about it. She was an upright walking creature. Just didn't have bones that looked anything like ours, or a head for that matter. Now, one other thing I want to point out about this is the people that are paid to go out and find these fossils, these pre-human fossils, are paid to find pre-human fossils. So what they do is they fudge it every way they can to make them look human, and they always have problems with the arms. Now, notice how robust her bones are relative to humans. If that was a human being standing there that was the same size, 3'6" to 3'8", her arm bone would be the size of this, the forearm bone, rather than this. So Lucy, as all primates are as much, much stronger and has much more robust bones than we do, and a longer upper arm bone. It would be, the human one would be off about right here somewhere. Longer in the arms. Because all the arms of the pre-humans are too long from here to here, from shoulder to elbow relative to us. So if you notice, what they did is they fudged this way up beyond where it ought to be to get this up here, so they could get the fingertip down around mid-thigh, when in reality it belongs down around here. Keep these little tricks in mind. This is all part of the subtle brainwashing campaign that is waged against you to make you believe that they're telling it to you straight about how this all happened. Okay, next slide. All right, as I said, these are the first four of the Australopithecines, and Lucy is one of the first kind, Australopithecus afarensis. We have Africanus, we have Robustus, we have Boise. All right, we have basically a pair of upright walking chimpanzees, upright walking gorillas. You can see that, length of face, width of face, and sagittal crest, which modern gorillas have. It's that ridge of bone where their muscles attach to the tops of their heads. So from 4 million years ago to approximately 2 million years ago, we have a pair of upright walking chimps, a pair of upright walking gorillas, and that's it. 2 upright walking chimps, 2 upright walking gorillas. 2 upright walking chimps, 2 upright walking gorillas. Now, doesn't it make sense to assume that they might have walked out of the Miocene on those 2 feet, since they're basically primates? They're chimps and gorillas. They're primates. Ah, but no, it couldn't be, because they walk upright. So they have to be pre-humans, which is part of the brainwashing to get everybody to believe that somehow humans are coming out of this. Coming out of this dark past that nobody quite seems to understand. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at a lie. We're looking at a lie, basically. That the lie is that this is a transition that's very smooth and it leads to us. Well, the truth of it is there's not a single human bone in the so-called pre-human fossil record. Not a single human bone in the pre-human fossil record. And if you really pin down anthropologists, you know what? They'll agree with that. Okay? Now, at 2 million years ago, we have a transformation. We are told it is a transition, that somehow the Australopithecines segued into the next creature, which is Homo. Homo meaning man. You will see they are indeed more man-like than are the Australopithecines, which are clearly primates, upright walking primates. So, we have this changeover from Australopithecines to Homos. We're told that it is a transition. It is a transformation, as you will see with this slide. Next slide, please. Okay, here we go. Australopithecine, early Homo. Notice, if you will, this is not a transition. This would require 20 or 30 gradual changes to get in from this to this. It is an overnight change. It is just sudden. Boom. The Homos are here. I don't mean that like it sounds. Okay, next slide. All right, the Homos are here. Here we go. The Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo archaic, Homo neanderthal, and then Cro-Magnon, Homo sapiens, us. Notice Neanderthal man going back and through the Australopithecines don't look anything like us. Nothing. Here we sit right here. Another transition. Now remember, we had 4 million years Australopithecines, approximately 2 million years. There's some overlap in here. And then here, 120,000 years ago only, boom, here we are. Suddenly, overnight, looking nothing like anything that has come before. The bones of all of these creatures are much thicker than ours, just like Lucy's were. And in every way, the shapes are dissimilar. They do not have, it's hard to tell looking straight on, but they have no foreheads. Their foreheads go straight back off their huge brow ridges, neither of which we have. We have nice forehead here. We have no brow ridges. Huge, round, nocturnal vision eyes. So did the Australopithecines. These are primate eyes. Primates have this kind of eye. Huge, wide nasal passages indicating a big flat nose spread across the face. We've got our little uplift of bone sticking our nose off our face. We have rectangular, small, reduced eye sockets, very poor night vision. A dramatic change has occurred. The upper jaw sticks off the face, ours squished in. Nothing like us. Next slide, please. Profiles show the degree of change is startling. Prognathous mouth, no chin. Prognathous mouth even more so, no chin, and then suddenly flat mouth, nice chin. Look at the change through here. Australopithecine, Homo erectus, Cro-Magnon. This is as big a leap from here to here as from here to here in anatomical terms. A light year, a light year. This is not a transition. These are transformations, despite what you are told by anthropologists. Next slide, please. Now, am I making it sound my way just because the heads go that way? No, let's look at a whole body. This is a Homo erectus called the Lake Turkana boy. Homo erectus, Lake Turkana boy. Now, notice, if you will, this guy's about 12 years old. His molars have not erupted yet. He already stands 5'8". He's going to grow to 6'6", maybe 7 feet in adulthood. We don't know how they grew. But already at 12 years old, he is a physically robust creature. He's going to be big. He's going to be big, and is he going to be strong? Every one of his bones are so robust and thick compared to ours. Every one of his bones at 12 years old is bigger and stronger than any bone in Arnold Schwarzenegger's body. This is a powerful kid. Now, what's that all about? What's Lucy's big bones all about? What's his big bones all about? It's the amount of strength that their muscles can generate. The thickness of your bones is a function of the power that your muscles can generate, the torque they can apply to the bones. What's the point of having bones that are going to snap under the strain that your muscles can create for you? Now, also understand that is nothing but a primate body and primate strength. Primates are 5 to 10 times stronger than we are pound for pound. Now, why do you, notice too, if you will, the length of his upper arm. And he has some shoulder socket here, so they had to put it in the right place, so that forced them to put the fingertip pretty near where it belongs. It belongs a little bit lower, but pretty close. Now, what are bones like this all about? What's the deal here? Why are they so robust? Your bones are a function of the torque your muscles can generate. Your bones have to be able to withstand the pressure that your muscles can generate. And if not, your muscles would break your bones. So when you're looking at bones like this, you're looking at an incredibly powerful creature. What are you looking at? You're looking at primate bones, primates of the earth. This is how the primates are built. Gorillas, chimps, right on down the line. They are incredibly strong relative to us, are the primates. 5 to 10 times pound for pound. They can come, they'll come right out of the mother's womb, reach up, hands and feet, hook onto her belly, and she walks off. And they can hang on. Anybody's had a pet monkey knows what I'm talking about. Next slide. Okay, this is a chimpanzee minus its hair due to disease, so you can see the musculature in here. And the strength of these things is amazing. Amazing. You could take a male chimp like this, not a gorilla, and put it in a room with Mike Tyson. It's a battle to the death, and they both understand that. 2 or 3 minutes, this chimp is walking out. Now, he may be missing an ear or two. But the chimp is walking out. The chimp can tear him limb from limb, literally, apart. Understand that. Primate strength is nothing at all like human strength. Next slide. All right, same thing with the Neanderthals. And this was supposed to be our kissing cousins up until just recently when it was proven that genetically we don't have anything to do with them. But up until then, these were our kissing cousins. And look at the difference. A fingertip of a Neanderthal and a human, a thigh bone of a Neanderthal and a human. Look at the thickness of the power of the muscle strength that this thing could generate in order to have a bone like that. There's no comparison. How could anybody look at this and think that there's some kind of a link between the two? And now we know that there's not. Even looking at this kind of evidence, that is what they insisted. Why? Because they have to explain it in terrestrial terms. Understand that science is hamstrung. They've painted themselves into a corner. They have to explain everything in terrestrial terms. They do not allow for outside intervention, whether that outside intervention is extraterrestrial or divine. And so they have to come up with explanations like this to suit the data, which doesn't at all support their conclusions. Okay, next slide. All right, here's the drawing that shows it a little more accurately what the prehumans are vis-a-vis the humans. Notice that in the drawings, the hands are down pretty much where they belong relative to ours. Also notice the rib cages are the upside-down funnels of primates in the prehumans as opposed to ours. What's the situation there? Well, you can't tell it very well from here, but all of the prehuman heads are stuck on their bodies like that, the way primates are. Their heads are down in on their shoulders. Only we have that elevated neck sticking our head up off of our torso. They also have that extra arm length and that extra power, and so they need a bigger fulcrum up here to wing their arms and do what they have to do. So all of that extra muscle mass plus the head torque down in there squeezes out the room, and so you're going to get that pinched off triangle that primates have. And we, with our shorter, lighter arms and lighter bones, we don't need all that muscle mass, and we got our heads sticking up, so we have a completely different rib cage. I want you to understand that. Now, the main thing to understand here is there is not a single human bone in the so-called prehuman fossil record. The main thing I want you to understand, there's not a single human bone in the so-called prehuman fossil record. And guess what? Anthropologists will not argue the point with you. An idiot can see it. An idiot can see it. All you got to do is point it out to them. Well, they know that. So they say, you're right, you're right. There's not a single human bone in the prehuman fossil record, even though we insist that these are indeed prehumans. The reason we can get away with this is because we're going to put somebody right in here that's going to show a transition between these guys, and that is the missing link, the famous missing link. You've all heard about that. This is what it is. This is the thing that's going to stand right in here and miraculously show a smooth transition from this to this. Well, I tell you what, if the missing link was here today, he would need about 20 or 30 cousins standing right beside him, showing enough gradual transition to make this plausible. You don't just get one missing link. You need dozens to make this theory work of gradual transition, the Darwinian paradigm. And they don't even have so much as a fingernail, not a fingernail, of the missing link. Which leads us to conclude that Charles Darwin is a blowed-up peckerwood. However, they will not concede that fingernail that's missing in that direction. Darwin's still intact, everything's still okay. Missing link's going to show up. It's been 140 years, not yet. But more than that, they have been looking their fannies off for 140 years and they don't have a finger bone of the missing link. There is no missing link. Never been a missing link, never going to be a missing link. It's just a fraud that they perpetrate on you and everybody out there because they want you to buy into their agenda. And they want you to not buy into the creationist agenda. All right, the throat thing, I want you to get that clear in your mind. Notice, if you will, this is a standard primate throat, and of course this is our throat. A complete redesign, complete. Not least of which is the fact that they can breathe and eat and swallow and drink at the same time and not choke. We, of course, you know what happens when we do. The peas come out of our nose when we start coughing. Okay, so the point is that primates with this kind of throat can make tremendous amounts of noise. Anybody's been to a monkey house or, you know, at the zoo, you know what I'm talking about. Hoops, hollers, screams, howls. They know no limits. They can just puncture your eardrums, some of them, howler monkeys particularly. But they cannot do the thing that we can do with our throats, which is what I'm doing right now, this minute. Break those sounds into little bitty pieces. It's called modulating. They can't modulate. They can't speak. And try as we might to teach them to speak, and we do. You know, Coco, they've been working for her, what, 20 years now? Up to maybe 3,000 words. You could put her in a third grade class and she could probably be valedictorian. But she can't speak. She can't speak, and she's never going to be able to because she doesn't pack the gear, as they say in the military. She doesn't pack the gear and never is going to. No primate is. We are completely different and completely special because of it. Next slide. All right, now, so here's what we're left with. This supposed smooth transition right on through from the early ones to the later ones, including this. Now, you can see, I hope, that all that's really happening here is the brains are getting bigger. And it's harder to tell because the Neanderthals and the archaics, their brains are expanding back here in what's called an occipital bun. But they're getting bigger every step of the way. It surprises most people to find out that Neanderthals had bigger brains on average than we do. 1,500 cc to 1,400 cc. Bigger brains than we have, Neanderthals. We shrunk somehow and got so much smarter. Figure it out. Point is that we're told that all these guys went extinct at 30,000 years ago because that's when we see the last Neanderthal. It's when we find the last Neanderthal fossil, 30,000 years ago. Okay, so they went extinct and that's it, and we're left behind. We were told for a very long time that we appeared at 30,000 years ago. The Cro-Magnon appeared right as the Neanderthals ended, so it was a real nice fit. You know, we appeared somehow, we killed them all, and that was it. Transition, we took over the lease, and that was it. So, the reality then later proved to be that these guys existed at least 120,000 years ago. These guys existed down into 30, so you got this huge overlap of nearly 100,000 years where they're living basically side by side on the planet and not killing each other off. So that one kind of went out the window, so they said, all right, so we didn't evolve from the Neanderthals, we evolved from the Homo erectus. You saw the Lake Turkana boy and how much we look like him. We evolved from him now. That's the new theory. Okay, you can see the problem. Now, did this really happen? Did they all go extinct? Well, why would they go extinct? No natural predators. Meanest dudes in the valley. They can take a lion on head to head and tear it apart. That's how strong they are, and that's how big they were. So what would make them extinct? Could we do that? Yes, we could. We are vicious little buggers. We are smart. We hunt in packs. We are pack animals. We're hyenas. We're two-legged hyenas. And we have a savage territorial imperative. Together, we could kill any of them. One-on-one, they just pop our heads off like a pimple. Understand that. So, given that, what if what we did was instead of driving them to extinction, we just drove them where they don't make fossils anymore? What if that happened? Is that a plausible scenario?